Alrighty folks, so here's another update here. Not a whole lot to show. This is the TBI 350. I had a bunch of machine shop work done to, and it's bored 30. The mains and the rods are turned 10 to 10. It was not a line honed, and this is a work in progress, and just trying to kind of clean up a little bit. And I tell you what, this thing is just, this poor old engine here was a mess. And like I said, we're going to move forward with it and straighten this thing out. I did a couple more things to it. I went through every single thread on this engine and chased them all out and got them all straightened out now. So we got nice clean threads now, and so all that's taken care of. The time and chain cover's taken care of. So I gotta clean all the surfaces a little better. But I'm gonna knock them junk steel plugs out of this thing, and we're gonna put brass in it, and because that's not staying. And look at that. That was not even. I know this block's a little bit rough, but if you look at it close, it's hard to see it on video, but that one is actually driven further in on this side. It's cocked a little bit, and this side's driven in a little bit further, where this side is out this way more, so it's sideways a tiny bit. But this one, looks like it could have went a tiny bit further, but some of them don't look too bad. This one looks pretty decent. That was driven in, I'd say, just about perfect there. That one looks like it's a little bit sideways, but nothing special here. And one thing, a pet peeve of mine, why do we do this, folks? I don't get that. That's a pet peeve of mine. Those are coming out too, and I will find a set of the correct plugs that came out of this block, and we're going to put them back in here. I don't like goofy hardware like that. That's coming out of there. That's just, that's not acceptable. I like stuff to be done properly. So, been straightening out, and I actually went through and this thing, from just casting flash, I went through and just very, very, very gently ground some of that off there. And still got a little bit sticking up right here. I might hit that a tiny bit more. I don't want to go too crazy. But for the most part, I can rub my hand and my fingers all over it. Won't get my fingers cut all to pieces. So I cleaned it up right here. And it had a heck of a burr right in here. And about cut the heck out of my fingers and all. But I went through and did all that, cleaned that up a little bit. And like I said, just got a little bit sticking out right here, but I don't want to go too crazy because it's, you got to be careful. I might knock it down just a little bit so it ain't got a point there. But I'll do that. And came up here to clean this up. That's nice and smooth now. Again, I did not take a lot off because, I'm not trying to go crazy here. I didn't want to take a lot off. I just went through and just cleaned it up so that it's not all them burrs and stuff on it. So might hit that just a little bit, tiny bit more, but it's not too bad. And I might leave it alone. It's not too bad. It's just the way it was cast right there. But it just, like I said, it's not special. 638 block, and thank God I was able to save these and got those straightened out. So those you gotta have. And when you building a 350 small block, and or any small block, make sure, it does not matter if you're going to use these bosses or not, but if you ever change your mind in the future and you want to pull this engine out and put it in another project, make sure these bosses, both of these bosses are here. You should have this one regardless, but make sure that boss is there. That's very critical. And make sure the engine that you got is, worth going through the effort, so to speak. It's just really nothing special. I'll flip it over for y'all in just a second. But it's just a 638 TBI engine. Nothing special. It's a 94 TBI 350. That's all it is. It did not have a roller cam in it. And when I got it, just 638. There's another 638. Yeah, it's hard to see. And look like you got A4 over there. A little bit blurry there. But and check this out. I thought this was kind of cool. But it's 327. That's neat. I don't know what that actually means, so that's interesting. I've never seen that before. I don't know. But we're going to correct this thing a little bit, straighten it out. And if I had it again, I would have just took this thing all the way. For the amount of money I have in this thing, again, we're moving forward with it. I pretty much should have just bought a 383 stroker kit and just put in this thing. And I think we're going to do that later on. But for now, we're going to put it together and just have fun with it, enjoy it for a little bit. And later on, I want to take this short block here. We're going to go all the way with it. We're going to make it 383. Because, I mean, it's already bored 30. It's been zero decked. I was kind of doubting it at first. But the more I look at it, and comparing it to older videos I got, I definitely think they zero decked it. So, but I went through this thing, and I'm going to have to spray it down again. I'm just trying to clean it up. I try to knock out some of the rust and stuff. It's not the best block, but it's a good block. It's got a little bit of flaws. It's got one little flaw right here. I've never seen that. That's just casting. The way it was cast, it's got a little hole right there, but it's not going to affect nothing at all. I asked about that. I actually like to take the drill bit and go in there and knock that sharp edge out of there. I wouldn't mind doing that. But, yeah, I never seen a block that had that. But I'd love to take this thing all the way and have it clearance for a 383 stroker crank here. And it'd just be kind of cool. Yeah, it's not a 4-bolt main. Who cares? You know, I don't care. Doesn't matter. I'm not drag racing, okay? That's the first thing I want to say. I'm not drag racing, all right? So, you don't really need a 4-bolt main. If this was a 4-bolt main, you know, don't get me wrong, it'd be nicer, but some people, you can argue that both ways. I don't really care. But some people say a 2-bolt main's stronger because the 4 bolts are come down in here, and it makes it weaker down here when they drill in the block. And then some people say that, you know, it makes 2 bolts stronger, but at the end of the day, and a lot of people are going to agree with me on this, I've never seen a 2-bolt main split. You know, I've never seen them split down in the journals here. So I'm not worried about it. And this engine will never see red line. Okay. This is just a nice cruiser. We want to take this TBI 350. And like I've mentioned in a lot of older videos, we're basically doing the complete opposite of what everybody else does. And what I mean by that is they'll have an older block from the 60s or 70s, and they'll slap Vortex on it. And that's cool and all, but that's not really my thing. And I like to go the opposite of that and just update the short block, but put either power pack or double humps with the old school top end on top of the more modern small blocks. So you got the roller cam, and in today's times you got to have a roller cam. It's just no way around it. It's just too many issues. And you know, even in a perfect world, a roller cam is not perfect either, but whatever. So it's just so many little details you want to do. I actually made this, so I had to make that. I did not have a tap or a thread chaser that was, I believe it's a 1/2 inch 13 for that one and that one. And like I said, they left out, they didn't take that out, but they put these junky things in here. I don't understand it. This is what, well, not that exact one. That is what will go back in here, except I'll find a new one. We're not going to use that crusty, rusty one, but I'm putting that back the way it's supposed to be, because that's the way I like it. You know, I like these plugs. I don't understand why they didn't pull that one out. So this thing was not shot pinned. The threads weren't chased. Thank God it is. I'm pretty sure it is zero decked. I was kind of doubting it, but I'm pretty sure it's zero decked. But because that's quite a bit of meat. And I was watching the old videos, and this thing was pretty pitted up where the head gasket doesn't touch. And that's all clean now. I'll flip it over in just a second. But yeah, nothing special. This is nothing special. at all. So, but I will get rid of those. And I just don't like goofy hardware like that where you got to pull out, 50 million different tools just to, accomplish, step 1, 2, and 3, like if you take it apart or whatever. But they're going. So, and something you want to do too is you really need to take and verify your stuff when you're working on an engine like this, and check this. A machine shop is not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. It's ridiculous, but you got to always verify your stuff. And when you get your parts, I highly, highly recommend going over this whole thing and verifying that everything is right and it's no surprises. Nobody likes surprises, okay? Always verify your stuff. Got an old pressure sitting in here, just an old one. And always verify this stuff. Make sure they thread in. Make sure it feels okay. You don't want to sit there and go through all the effort and on any engine, okay? And you have surprises. It's not cool. Always make sure that plug's right there. And I don't like the way, it's hard to see down in there, but they put that plug in the other way. And it almost looks like it's upside down. Something's not right about that. I don't like yet. And it's just so many details. Just check this stuff out, okay? And if you gotta check it 2-3 times, that's fine. See that? That's all you want to do. Look at that. That didn't even take, 10 seconds? Machine shop is not going to do this stuff. Check all your bolt holes. Make sure all this stuff lines up. This is very critical here. This ain't something to play around with. Make sure here's the time cover I'm going to use. I got to clean it up, paint it, put a seal in it. But, on a TBI engine, you have these dowel pins here. There's one there, and there's one there. Well, in a Vortec, it's got the plastic time chain cover. And they both have this retainer plate right here. But these old galley plugs right here are actually, this is flush, okay? The older blocks look more like this. So there's an older block there. And if you notice that these are countersunk way further in. And so I did update this block. Made a video about it a while back. I just got a pipe tap there, and I just thread them in there. And I would do this regardless, no matter what, because my personal opinion is, these seal up much tighter and much better. And especially if you're running a high volume oil pump, you don't want to push them plugs out like that. And, in a perfect world, nothing's perfect. Don't get me wrong. But, I would do this regardless. But just remember, if you do that on a newer block, you want to make sure, because this surface, or this journal is too, and you can also see core shift, and it's got a little bit there, but it's not too terrible. But you always want to make sure, it's easier to do on these older blocks, because these are countersunk, and your time chain gear, I know it looks like this is taller than that, but it's actually about even. But this one, I believe, you don't want to go too far in because you'll block off that old galley feed hole. And so you got to be careful about that. But the time chain gear is actually offset a little bit, so it's no way going to rub that. Okay, so we got plenty of clearance there. But the reason why you can't run a double roller, okay, on a newer block is around these edges here. Okay, that gear will rub, but that is a little bit of the difference there. And something else you got to look out for too is some of these blocks are drilled all the way, and some of them are not. So if you go put a mechanical fuel pump in, and you put that push rod in here, and something else to keep an eye on too is the older block like this, that mechanical fuel pump push rod is going to probably have a little bit of play when you put that in there. But a TBI engine like I have, it's never had a mechanical fuel pump, hence TBI, it's fuel injected. But, so it's going to be, more of a tighter fit. A good tight fit, but not too tight where it won't, pivot like it's supposed to. Or engage with the camshaft lobe there. But, so anyway, some of these are drilled all the way through. and some of them are not. This block is actually drilled all the way through, and so, you know, that's something else to look out for too. And I've seen blocks where they're not, so, you know, you don't have to really worry as much. But this one's drilled all the way, so you got to be careful on the bolt length you put in there too. You don't want to put too long of a bolt, and you know, you can really score up and mess up your fuel pump push rods. You know, that's not good. So but it's just, you know, I'm not no expert, none. I'm just a shade tree guy, just trying to, you know, fix an engine and you know, get back and forth to work on Monday. You know what I mean? And but I got to go through and clean this thing up. This is actually Hemi Orange, and Hemi Orange 350 here. This one's 60 over, and but it's just, you know, little things like that time chain gear will actually rub. You can you can run a single roller, like a Chloe single roller, or a double roller on the older blocks. But on the newer blocks, the only really choice you got, because I don't like the crappy factory time chain gear. I just don't like them. But I like to run a roller. But since you can't run a double roller, you can run a single roller. And that's the only way you can really do that to get by without it, you know, rubbing around these little galley holes there. So that's some of the difference there. And so that's what I was kind of talking about right here. Says all this is flush together. So you want to make sure that these are sunk enough that that time and chain gear won't rub nothing. But you can't really, that's why you can't really run a double roller on here, because you'd have to grind the heck out of these bosses, especially this top one, in order to run that, which to me, don't get me wrong, a double roller I know is better, but I don't know, that's a lot of material to be grinding out of there. I've seen videos on YouTube where people have done it, but I personally wouldn't do that. Another thing, they did not put cam bearings in here. Go figure. But you know, just take your time and verify the stuff. You know, it's not rocket science, but you know, make sure everything lines up. Yes, I know it's, you know, no gasket there, but it doesn't hurt to dry fit this stuff. And you know, it makes it nice. See, see how nice them threads are again. I know they're not perfect, but you know, you don't have all that rusty, crusty, and all that trash in here, and it just makes it nice. Some blocks had a little plug that was right here. This does not. But and they also have this bypass hole from here to here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Is and this is nothing to worry about. The older blocks do not have this, but I can get that thing to go through there. There it is. So we'll fish that through there. Again, it's nothing special. There it is. You can kind of see my wire there. Let's see. I can get that through. There it is. But that's what that's for. There we go. And the older blocks don't have that drilled there. So and that doesn't affect nothing. Okay, that ain't gonna affect nothing. You can run. These had a reverse flow water pump, where the older blocks had a standard rotation water pump, meaning the water pump and the crankshaft turn the exact same direction. Where the TBIs and the Vortex, a reverse flow water pump, the Vortex has a slightly different water pump than a TBI engine, even though it's still a reverse flow water pump. But the impeller is offset from the crankshaft pulley, if that makes sense. So because the Vortex has that little reluctor wheel down there, and for the crankshaft sensor, and that's just on the Vortex, though. You don't have that on the TBI engines. Personally, I would stick with the TBI engine. If you're going to build any engine at all, get yourself a TBI. Make sure it has all these bosses drilled. You'll have 1, 2, 3 for the spider tray there. And make sure it's got these drilled. And make sure that this is drilled all the way through. And you got a drain hole right here. And make sure it's drilled all the way up through there, and you can see the hole right there. So very critical there. So you always want to make sure, and this really shouldn't matter at all. You can put, like I said, you can put an old long water pump here, a standard rotation long water pump, and it ain't going to hurt nothing. I've did it, and I haven't had no issues. Coolant still, remember, on these engines, and as well as the Vortex, coolant flows the exact same direction no matter what. Meaning it cools, it goes through the block first and comes out these holes, goes into the cylinder heads, and then comes out these cylinder heads and feeds through the front of the intake, and then meets in the middle where your thermostat housing is, flows through that, and then goes back into the radiator, gets cooled off, comes back through your lower radiator hose, and then goes back through the water pump, and then same thing over and over and over again. But always make sure that if you're going to build a more modern small block here, make sure that that hole is drilled. Okay, very critical there. So make sure that hole is drilled, and that'll make your life so much easier, and it just makes it a whole lot nicer. So, but I think we'll be all right there. I had that done, and they actually did that, but surprisingly, I had that thread down here I had to clean out, and I got very lucky on that. So I was a little questionable right there. I was a little bit worried on it, but got that cleaned out and that cleaned out. And you always want to make sure too that, you know, what if somebody has a Tri-5 Chevy and they want to use the original engine mounts? And yes, blah 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 blah, you can buy the side mounts, we all know that, blah 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 blah. And but maybe somebody wants to put the original style engine mounts back in there because they want to keep the car original, you know. So make sure you have these 4 bosses right here, and that way you can use the front engine mounts. That's something else to look out for too. And like I said earlier, always make sure that you have both those bosses right here for your. This kind of applies to a 59 Chevy or 60, 70, 72 C10. Make sure you got both the bosses right here. Even if you're not going to use them, you know, like I said earlier, who knows? You might want to pull this engine out and put it in a new project. Or you're just looking to buy one. And, but this block was cast B, and it is 5.7, 350, nothing special. This is nothing special, okay? And it was cast February, because B would be February, A is January, B is February, C is March, D is April, and so on and so on. So it would be February 17th of 94. And I believe there's a little bit of there's 3. That's a 3 right there. That might have been the shift it was made, I guess. I don't know. 3rd shift, I don't know. And that's nothing special. 140-93638. Nothing special, okay? Some of these small blocks actually have, I have the 85 that has 305 written about right in here where the 638 is, but it'll actually have, no, I believe it's actually up in here. It has 305 written right there. And it is hard to see. It's actually upside down, but that would be 305. Up 305 right there, but it is right there. And pretty wild there. It's balancer. It has 305 written right there. It's pretty crazy. But you always gotta make sure that what you're building is you gotta make sure it's worth it, you know. And like I said earlier, you know, make sure, because we have that boss right back there, okay, but we have no boss right there, so we cannot bolt up a the clutch assembly on a 6772 C10, so that's something to make note of. And like I said, you know, it's just 305. So, and I have a 87 305. This happens to be a 85, but I have a 87 that has a factory roller cam in it. Nothing special, and it has both bosses. So, you know, always make sure they're there, and you'll have a nice, good day. Most people would freak out when they see this, but I don't really care. This is my engine, and I'm not scared of it. But that's what I did very gently there around that edge right there. And so now, if I go to work on it, I'm not going to cut my fingers all to pieces. And, you know, it's just little details like that. I'm not perfect, no way, shape, or form. But, you know, nobody likes to cut the fingers all to pieces on stuff like this. So I just very, very, very gently, and I did not take a lot of meat off, but I got that nice and smooth now, and that's all I did. Is took my grinder, and like I said, most people would freak out, and I just cleaned that up. And I cleaned that up there, and cleaned it up over there, and now it looks so much better. That way, it ain't no sharp edges there. But again, it's a little pet peeve of mine, and I got it just a little bit right there, and just makes it nice. You know, this is all I'm really after. That's all I want to do. Is put these heads on here, get them, you know, cleaned up, and put this intake on here, and I'll find the correct 327 valve covers and put on here, and just make it look like 327. And we'll put old point distributor in it. Maybe put the Petronics in it. Heck, I don't know. I might just stick with points, to be honest. I've heard a lot of issues about that Petronics junk. Seems like the wires are really thin gauge, and, you know, like a lot of people say, points usually get you home, so we'll figure it out. I might like to put a point distributor in it. Put a Rochester 4GC on it. And I love my old fill tube intake on it. And we'll take in, we could do the PCV two different ways, since the valve covers don't have that hole in it, and I don't want to cut a hole in it. We could actually get a cap that we could just hook a vacuum hose right here, like GM did in '68, and use that to draw crankcase pressure out, and I'll run it to a vacuum line. But I don't know if I really like that, because then you got a vacuum line that you have to get a different style oil cap, and you have to get one of the PC in line so you can hook a hose on both ends of it. Want to go to the breather cap here, then another goes into the PCV valve, and then you'll have another hose from that to a vacuum source. So you could draw it out, you know, that way. Or I've seen somebody on YouTube, and I forget his name, I cannot remember that guy's name, but his name I can't remember. But he actually drilled a hole in the back of the intake, and did it that way. But he used to, like, a valve cover grommet and put in there. And to me, I didn't really like that idea, because I think that would create a oil leak. But I would just drill a hole in the back of the intake and put a regular pipe thread in there, and then hook a hose from that, and then put the check valve in there and just run it straight to the back of the carburetor. That way it's hidden, you never see it. And it may not be the best way to do PCV, but so there's that option too. And yeah, this is nothing special. It's not. This is all I want to do. And just make it look like a 327. And put a cold 4-speed behind it. And you know, the nice thing about it is we'll just have the more modern setup of the roll cam. It'll just make it nice. So apparently, like I said, I'm not perfect, but this is a 1972 350 here, and this one does actually have the bypass hole, so I'm not sure on that one. Maybe they all did. I don't know. But good thing I checked that, because they had a mud diver disc in there, and so I was able to knock the nest out, and you know, that's free. So yeah, you know, and this engine right here was designed for a standard rotation water pump, so there should be no reason at all why you can't run a, and I did it, why you can't go from a reverse flow to a standard flow water pump, meaning a clockwise. Everything turns the same direction as the crankshaft. So I'm not sure on that. So, but that's just a little tip out there. So this one does have that. So I don't know if it was a 283, 265, 283, maybe a 327 thing. Maybe they didn't have it. I don't know. But anyway, so always make sure that's definitely not blocked like mine was. So just a little tip there. So you can go to V-belts on a TBI engine with no issues. And you can run a long water pump or a short water pump. no issues there. And technically, you can do the same with a Vortec, only if you're deleting the EFI. If you're running the factory EFI and it has that crankshaft sensor right here, you can't do it, because the crankshaft, the balancer, and the water pump, the balancer is the same. It's an 8-inch harmonic balancer. They are the exact same as a TBI and a Vortec. It's the same balancer. Okay, I think pretty much all small block Chevrolet balancers are the same. Okay, as far as being a 8-inch balancer, so to speak. Yes, you got 6 3/4, you got a 7-inch balancer, blah 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 blah. Yeah, you got a 400. They're externally balanced, blah 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 blah. But I'm just referring to the how the pulley alignment lines up from the water pump to the crankshaft. Okay, that's what I'm referring to. And so the TBI and the Vortec, it's the exact same balancer, and they are a neutral balance harmonic balancer. But the flywheel or flex plate is actually externally balanced, which is kind of interesting. So the older small blocks were internally balanced, except for a 400. They were externally balanced. But so these engines are kind of oddball, but whatever. But like I said, just take your time there and make sure everything lines up nice. And, it's no surprises. I like to dry fit stuff. And it just makes it really simple, And I don't think we're really going to have any issues from what I can tell. Hopefully, knock on wood, with our intake. So we're going to dry fit some head gaskets on here and just set the heads on them and just kind of see what's what. So I just threw a head gasket on here. This is obviously not the one I'm going to use. But, yeah, I know everything's all dirty. This thing's going to be re-cleaned anyway, so it's not really going to matter. This thing still has metal shavings in it, okay? But, so, looks like everything's going to line up pretty good. Got our bypass hole right here. And, really doesn't matter which direction these head gaskets go, because they can go either way, and it'll still line up. And, I'll actually show that. So, there's a bypass hole right there. And we actually take this thing, and this head gasket was used at one point. Well, it's never ran, but it still lines up. So I don't think it ever had any numbers right there. So it's only been machined quite a bit, for sure. But we'll set our other head gasket on the other side and just kind of get an idea of how the intake is going to line up. They did not shave the china walls, so they weren't machined. So this thing might be zero decked after all, so let's see. Might end up ordering head gaskets that are made for a 4030 bore. And so this is why you check stuff out. It's a little close right in here. I don't like that. So it's a little bit close right in there. I don't really like that. So the rest, it's a little bit close right in here, but anyway, whatever. But these head gaskets were torqued down but never ran, so to speak. But I was looking at the older video, and it had a lot of, it had the outline of the head gasket there, and on the deck of the block before it was ever machined. And they definitely took quite a bit off of it, because it had a lot of pits and stuff in it. So they definitely took quite a bit off of it. And but so that's interesting. So I'll probably will end up having to order, and I would not cheap out on head gaskets. I would definitely buy a good quality head gasket for sure. So and I really don't want to use the multi-layer steel head gaskets. I don't think it really matter. It's been zero decked. I mean, I could do it. Obviously, I got to have the heads, everything done on them. Positive style valve stem seals. And it's going to need hardened seats. And if you're already going to put seats in it, I might just upgrade it to 202/16 valves. And go and mill them and just do the whole 9 yards pretty much. You're already in there anyway. And may even put screw-in studs and guide plates in them too. So we will see. But and also it'll be nice to cut the guides down so it will accept a at least a 550 lift cam. I'm not going to run a 550 lift cam, but if I ever want to in the future, then it'll already be done. So I just like to think ahead. So let's see what we got. So I think we're going to be okay, and this is just very, very crude and rough way of doing this. Obviously, all the surfaces are not clean, so, but it's just give me a rough idea. Everything's going to have to be cleaned thoroughly, but I think it's going to line up pretty good. So, but I think we'll be okay. So we will see. So, I don't know if I got any intake gaskets or not. Let me go look and see if I got some. I really don't want to mess it up, but these hit gaskets I'm not really too worried about. But because they're used, so I'm not really worried about messing those up. And these heads are going to have to be completely redone. But this is all I'm really after, though, you know. And you know, just put a nice point style distributor in it. And put a nice Rochester 4GC on it, and you know, just make this cool little hot rod. And then we can always take two, and later on, God forbid something happens to our points, we can always keep a spare. I don't really like them, but well, I like them. They're very reliable, but I really don't like that big ugly cap. I like that cap much better. But we can always keep a spare HEI and put in it. And we'll have to run a melanized distributor gear, and make sure, you know, or doesn't chew up our cam gear there. It's very critical. And I think we got to run a special fuel pump push rod too for the roller cam. And the roller cam I plan on putting in it is just a factory roller cam. So and they did make TBI engines that came in, I believe, some Camaros and stuff, probably other vehicles too, that did have a factory roller cam in a TBI engine, okay? And in 96, when they went to Vortec, and a Vortec, the short block is the exact same thing as a TBI. Only difference is the timing chain cover, really. That's basically it. And they're the exact same. The only thing that's different is the top end is completely different. But other than that, they're pretty much the exact same thing. But you know, that's all I'm trying to do. That's all I'm trying to do, folks. Nothing crazy. Just have a more modern V8. And you can actually buy different thickness distributor gaskets right there. And you can actually buy different thicknesses for those. So if you have to, it's good to check that too. And these fuel pump gaskets right here, they go right down here. But they are the other gasket that goes on top of the plate, that little metal plate right there. Believe it or not, they are all the exact same for a Ford, a Dodge, a Chevrolet. Generally speaking, that gasket is pretty much universal. This one is not, but the other gasket that goes on there is. So you can use a small block Chevrolet fuel pump gasket, the little one there that goes on top of that metal plate between the mechanical fuel pump and that steel plate that goes on here. You can use that same gasket there on a small block Ford, a Dodge, and obviously Chevrolet, and many other vehicles there. So you know, but I do like to get these machined down. These are just 462 heads, and you know, nothing special, but so nothing really special there, 462s, and so you know, somebody went through this one time. This is a nice original head that actually was on my C10 back in 2017, and this head was last run. I know when that head was last run was March of 2017, which is pretty cool. But the one of the exhaust valves, actually this one right here, is the seat is just wiped out, and hopefully it's not too deep that a seat won't go in it. I think it'll be okay, but that's a nice original cylinder head there. This one's been worked on. It's had guides put in it, and I don't know, I'm a little nervous because it's got some issues going on there. But that one guide is chipped, so I don't know if this head's really going to be savable or not. But people want crazy money for these cylinder heads, and they're really nothing special. And you know, sure, if it was maybe a and even then they're really not that special. But I do realize they are getting hard to come by now. But you know, they're just ridiculous prices for these cylinder heads. People want way too much money for them. I was quoted, not counting parts, but just in labor, I was quoted about $2 grand just to in labor and machine work, just to do all that, not even counting, you know, buying all the hardware, all the valves and springs, and, you know, doing all that. So which is ridiculous, because you used to be able to get these cylinder heads remanufactured, and you could get the pair for probably, you know, $800-900. So, you know, none of it makes sense. So I don't understand why the machine shop was wanting $2 grand to do all that. And that was really doing just normal routine stuff, you know, surface them, harden seats, upgrading to positive, the kind of push on the guide there, like a Vortec or a TBI cylinder head. That was just upgrading it to those valve stem seals and hardened seats and maybe screw in studs, but really, you know, nothing really special. And I don't like accessory holes, not on this, not for what I'm doing, so that's why I'm not worried about it. And I will never run power steering or have air conditioning. It'll just be running water pump and an alternator, and that's it. So very simple setup. So, you know, so accessory holes I'm not really worried about. And you really don't have to have accessory holes anyway. There's so many different aftermarket availability now that you can, for V-belts that is, that you can kind of get by without it, so it doesn't really matter. But this thing should run pretty good. Here is one of the pistons that I'm going to be running in the engine here, so that'd be pretty cool. So I like that. I think it's going to run pretty good. So I told him I wanted 11-to-1 compression. So if I had it over again, I would have took this thing all the way, and I would have made it a 383 for sure. And because I mean, for the amount of money I got, I definitely would have made it a 383. And like I said, I do plan on doing that eventually. So, but so it's really nice just to kind of, you know, see what you got, take your time with this stuff. And again, I'm no expert. And, you know, just make sure you don't have no surprises. This is a rough, crude way of doing this, I know. But, again, like I said, it's going to have to be cleaned. But here's the original rear main seal. I don't know what happened to my windows tray. I'm going to have to find that. But I do have the retainer plate that goes behind the camshaft. Which is another reason, too, why I like running these engines, is I don't like that nylon. You can buy the cam button for, like, if you had an older block. So it holds the cam in place, because they don't have the bosses right there for it. And it's kind of funny how Ford already was doing it a long time ago. So and they were holding their flat tap cam in. So I don't know, but I do have these. So for a small lot Chevrolet, that is. So I have the correct one. This is obviously for a Ford, but I have the correct one. And you can buy these different thicknesses as well. So we'll have to make sure we get the right one. So the Ford bolt pattern is a little bit more narrow versus a Chevy, so that's kind of interesting. But that's pretty cool there. But what's crazy is this is a 4.030 bore, or 30 over 350, and this 351 Windsor is also a 30 over 351 Windsor, which is kind of crazy. So so they're both the exact same bore, 4.030. So that's pretty cool there. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. That's interesting there. Same bore, just same exact bore. And I think the 351 Windsor actually has a tiny bit longer stroke than a 350 does. Because I know a 350 is 3.48, almost a 3.5 inch stroke roughly. But I had to look it up on that. That's pretty interesting. But, you know, it's just good to take this stuff. And again, I know this stuff ain't clean, but it's always good to, you know, just kind of see what you got here. And I got to clean that hole out. Yep. So I missed that one. That's the only one I missed. So we'll clean that out. And I was thinking there was a dowel pin there. I couldn't remember. So I've had this thing apart so many times. And these are kind of a pain in the butt. And personally, if you build an engine, put your camshaft in first before you put anything else in, and make sure it spins freely. Then after you do that, I see a lot of people messing this up. What I don't understand is why don't you just go on and drive that expansion plug in there, and you can actually set the in play somewhat with that. But I would just go on and drive it in. I wouldn't drive it in all the way home, but in case you have to tap it in more to set the camshaft in play a little bit. But I would at least start it in there without it on the engine stand. That way that's done, and then take this and go on and install this on the crankshaft, and then lay the crankshaft in the block. That's just me. But in this case, for a one-piece rear main seal, and I'm kind of half and half. You know, neither one are really better than the other. I don't really. That's just me. That's my personal opinion. And you know, one-piece rear main seal is really no better than a two-piece rear main seal, and that's my opinion. And a lot of people probably give me slack for that. But a two-piece rear main seal, you know, can leak. Either one can really leak if it's not done right. Okay, at the end of the day, and neither one is really better than the other. They're really not. But a one-piece, if it's done right, shouldn't leak in quotations there. It might be technically less likely in quotations there to leak versus a two-piece, but a two-piece might be easier to change out versus a one-piece. And so, you know, it's pros and cons on both of them. Really, at the end of the day, neither one are better than the other, because this one piece can blow out and it can dump all your oil out. And the two-piece can leak, but at least it's in that cap, so it'll hold it in there. So at least, you know, it's got that groove in the cap there to hold it in there. So so it might leak, but it might not blow out. So you know, neither one is really better than the other. They're really not. That's just my personal opinion on it. They're really no better than in each other, so to speak. So I think we're going to be okay on our intake. Hopefully we'll be okay. And it seems like it lines up pretty good, so I think we're going to be okay. So I don't think we'll have to have this intake. I do plan on running. This is the actual intake I actually plan on running on here. And I like this intake. It's a nice clean intake. It doesn't have any of that junky choke stuff on it. It's nice and clean right here. And I will run gaskets that block off the crossover. And because my personal opinion, I don't think you really need it. And the only downside to that is that gasket might eventually burn out, but whatever. But it's something you can really do about it. But I made the mistake in the past of going in there and welding up. And be careful what you watch on YouTube. And you got to be careful about that, because that's how I ruined a set of 305 cylinder heads. And went in there and hogged them out way too much and took way too much meat out of there. And I was scared they were going to crack. And they were already lightweight heads. And I just thinned them out even more. And especially around the bowl area, around the guide on the other side there where the combustion chamber is. And you really got to know what you're doing with that. And do not weld up the exhaust crossover. Don't do that, because what can happen is if that weld cracks and it busts and it breaks, guess where it's going? It's going right down there, and it's going to get drawn in right down there, and that exhaust port, and then it's probably most likely going to get stuck underneath the valve seat and that valve, and you're going to have a bad day. It's going to bend the valve and blow it up. So don't do that. And that's just my personal opinion, is I would not weld it. And seen a video on YouTube, and you got to be, don't believe everything on the internet, okay? And I'm not perfect either, but don't believe everything on the internet. And I'll give you a little hint there. His name of his channel is Uncle, and it's actually got 3 names: Uncle, and then the last name is Garage. So y'all kind of figure that out from there. But don't, you know, just be careful on YouTube. And You know, I know it's a lot of, unfortunately, I won't go to too much detail, but unfortunately, a lot of people on YouTube try to, you know, you want to make sure you're led in the right direction, and it's a lot of promotionalism on YouTube, unfortunately. So I don't believe everything on there. But I think this is going to work out pretty good, and I think I might go in here and actually stamp. I might actually go in there and stamp O30 and then put R, O10, and then M for O10. Just, I might put it right there on the front. A lot of people might not like that, but I really don't care. And I might actually do that just to keep track of it, and it's not going to hurt nothing. So this is going to be a pretty cool build, and like I said, one day I'd love to make it a 383, and it'd be a cool little engine here. So we'll show a couple more things here, and I know I'm kind of dragging this out, but you know, you just don't want to go in and be in the dark about these engines here. And I would, like I said, I would build a TBI 350 before I would even mess with the Vortec, because the Vortec, you know, and just make sure your TBI is all drilled and set up for a factory roller cam, and then you're good to go. And the issue with the Vortec is a lot of times all this down in here, it's not machined for the push rod or the drain hole or the 4 bolt holes right there. It's just a mess, and the jig is super expensive, and like $1,000 just to, you know, to drill all that out, and it's just a mess. So just really make sure that's there. And if you're not going to use it, I would still make sure it's, you know, all the bosses and everything are there, so that it's, you know, like I said, if you ever want to change your mind, you pull it out and you want to put this in something different, you might need them. So, you know, plan ahead. Always plan ahead and verify what you got. And just be aware of things like this. That's an 1 5/8. It's hard to see, but look how narrow and how thin that is. You really don't want to use that. And even though it is the right size, you really don't want to use that in place of those steel ones right there, because that's not a lot of press fit. That's not a lot of meat holding that thing in there. And the last thing you want to do is have these pop out going down the road. And, you know, you got to remember when things, you know, when this is the same temperature as it is outside, but when you start running stuff and, you know, heat makes things expand, you don't want them things coming out. They'll come out. You know, that's not good. So you don't want them things to pop out like that. But I like to make sure, like I said, it's no surprises. I'm super picky on that stuff, and I like to make sure, you know, all our bolt holes are going to line up, and make sure, you know, all our dog bones, that's what those are, make sure all of them go in the block right. So that's just why I like to verify everything. And again, I'm not promoting any of this. This is just something I like to do. I like to be different, and I'll just run an old school top end on a more modern small block. And I just like to go over everything, and you know, this is the correct retainer plate, and for a roll cam, and you know, it just, look at that, you know, thread in there, beautiful. Now everything's going to have to be cleaned thoroughly, but I guess you can use forward cam shaft retainer bolts. That's pretty cool. Huh. I like it. It's pretty cool. Yeah, beautiful. See that? So, you know, no surprises there. And it's going to be pretty nice. Here's the gasket I was talking about for your fuel pump. They're all the same, folks. All the same. Go right on there. There's a fuel pump, brand new fuel pump, and all the same. I might have to put that on something to flatten out a little bit, but lines up just fine. Some of these new fuel pumps you had to watch. Some of them got a spring right there, and some of them don't. So I don't know what's up with that. I guess it's better to have a spring. Maybe, probably it is. I would say it is. So I think some of the springs are different colors too, so I don't know. Maybe they got different tensions, I don't know. This one has a spring here. And the bolt pattern for all these fuel pumps is all the same between Ford, Chevrolet, and Mopar there. And I honestly think all the fuel pumps are the same, other than the base down here and that little arm right there. And I think that's really the only difference, truthfully. So there's that. Again, you're putting a small block Chevrolet fuel pump on. It's so nice to have that. And it just makes it real nice. I have the plate for that too. But there's that gasket. You'll need that gasket right there. And of course this one. This is not, that's a good Felpro one. This is definitely not a Felpro, but it'll work, I don't have to lay it on something flat. It's a little tweak there, but that's okay. But it's just nice to sew this stuff, and these gaskets, I don't think they'll sit there to, but I will get something to block that off. I'll get a different gasket and to block that off there. And I think we'll be okay. These are Felpro gaskets. So I might try and set the intake on here. Let's see if they move too much. I really don't want to mess them up. Let's check the intake again. Let's just kind of see what we got here. Oh, a little tip out here. The reason why the center ones are a little bit bigger than these end ones right here is these are supposed to be able to fit the old style, which was what we had here, cylinder heads with that bolt angle, as well as the TBI angle as well, which is what I have right here. So yeah, they're different angle there for TBI cylinder head. And also, that is the positive style valve stem seal that I want to install on the on these double humps here. But the center bolts on a TBI intake are at a different angle, so you have to kind of keep that in mind there. I wish they made a intake that had the old bolt pattern that the double humps have, but had a was capable to bolt a TBI throttle body unit directly on it. I wish they made that. They do make a Vortec bolt pattern intake that you can put a TBI unit on, but they don't make a old style, as far as I know, intake that you can mount a TBI unit on. And you can buy adapters, I know, but that throws everything out of whack. So, and the fuel lines ain't long enough, and then you just can't worm. So I don't know. So I very, very, very gently set this on here. I don't want to screw up these gaskets, but I think we're going to be fine. I think we'll be all right. A little bit of a gap right there. Again, in a perfect world, this stuff is not, 100% perfect. So it's not 100% clean surface, so it will probably in reality sit a little bit lower than that. But from what I can tell, and everything's lined up pretty good, so like I said, it'll go down a little bit lower than that. And so yeah, that side will go down a little bit lower too. So I think we're going to be okay. I think we'll be okay right there. I think we'll be okay here. I know this ain't the correct oil pressure. I need the other style. That's okay. But I think we'll be alright right there. It should clear right there. But I think it's going to work out. I think it'll work out. It, of course, will be more accurate when we clean the intake surface up and have the cylinder heads redone and make sure everything's properly cleaned and not like it is here. But I think it's going to line up, so I think we'll be all right. I don't think we'll have to machine the intake. I think we're going to be okay. So, like I said, it's just good to check stuff like this. I don't like surprises, so looks like it's going to all line up right there. So I don't think we're going to have any oil leaks. I think we're going to be okay. So think it's going to work out pretty good. So I don't see anything. I think it's going to be all right. It looks like it lines up pretty good. So, but that's all we're trying to do, folks. That's it. Just old school top end, and on a more modern short block. That's it. Usually you see a lot of videos, and you know, people always talking about putting Vortex on basically anything other than a Vortex, and you know, a TBI or the Generation 1 small blocks, you know, basically anything but a Vortex, you know. But I just like doing the opposite of that. I'm not building it to drag race. I'm just building it to, if I had again, like I said, I would have made it 383. But, you know, I just want to do something different. And it's very difficult to find videos like this. This is just something I like to make period correct, even though it's really not. But, you know, it just makes it really nice. And I think it'd be pretty cool to put something together like this and just have the modern benefit of the roller cam. And that's all I want. Just build cruise, and maybe even put a Camaro, a late 80s, early 90s Camaro 5-speed behind this, and just put it in our Chevelle. And that's what I have officially finally decided on what I wanted to put this in. I was going to put it in the C10, and then I changed my mind. I was going to put it in the 59 Chevy, and then I changed my mind, and we're actually going to put it in the Chevelle. And that's what I want to do. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I've had this engine that came all the way from Minnesota, and it really wasn't that bad shape, to be honest. And I could have did a home rebuild on it, and technically kind of am still doing a home rebuild, but I could have probably definitely got by with all that machine work for sure. And just make sure when you do stuff like that, verify everything and make sure it's worth it. You know, make sure your heart's really into it and it's something you really want to see through. Because I'll be honest, folks, is I had that thing up there for a long time, and I lost interest in it. And now that I'm actually seeing it now I'm kind of starting to get motivated again and want to finish this. So, but I think it'd be pretty cool just kind of modernize it a little bit and just be something different, you know. I like to be different. And honestly, if we really want it to be real picky, I did buy a 6 3/4 inch balancer for this, and I will actually show that. It is a neutral balance, harmonic balancer, and if we really want it, we could actually take that timing chain tab there off our original 283 timing chain cover, and pull it off, and then get this at top dead center and line it up where it's at true TDC, and then just take and tack weld that right back on to line up if we really want it. So so you know, it's different ways we could do that. We could do that and make it look even more like a 283, or, well, I said 283, but make it look more like a 327, even though it's not. I mean, honestly, the passenger side dipstick is going to give it away. And that's the best thing GM ever did. I'm so glad they did that. I always hated the driver's side dipstick. I don't like them. And don't get me wrong, they look cool because it's an older block, but, and of course don't have that little casting right here. That'll give it away too. But and it's not. This is more narrow here, and this is a triangle here. You know, obviously little things like that is going to give it away. It's obviously a newer short block, but at the end of the day, I don't care. So we could do something like that. So here's two brand new harmonic balancers. This one I got to clean up. It's got a little bit of flash rust on it. But that one I just bought not that long ago. But this one actually looks, they're both Dorman. This one looks a little bit nicer. But this one, if you notice, there's the mark. It's not marked there. I mean, it's marked, but it's not marked. Like, let me show y'all. Try to be gentle with these. There it is. So it's not marked, so ain't that something? So that's nice. They took a little bit of time and marked it, so that's cool. But if you look at these balancers here, and they are facing about the same way. Not that it really matters, but there is no weight in here, none. Okay, none. So well, there's part number right there. But I don't like that. Huh. Brand new. It looks like it's split. This one actually looks like it's better quality. And this one came from Napa. That's crazy. And this one I ordered off the internet. That one looks... Look at how thick it is compared to that. I don't know, whatever. But this is a neutral balance harmonic balancer. And these are both 6 3/4. And I didn't want to go too much smaller than that because, you know, 8-inch balancer is honestly the way to go from what I've kind of gathered there. And it's supposed to keep the harmonics down a lot better versus a 6 3/4. But at the end of the day, if you think about, you know, 265, 283, you know, of course they might be weighted differently, whatever. But even I've ran a 6 3/4 on a 305. So I mean, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. So that's just my personal opinion. So it's not cracked right there. Maybe it's just the way it's made. I don't know. But they are 6 3/4. Both of them are. So pretty cool wear. I just like them because it gives you more clearance, especially if you add power steering to it between the bracket and all. And so that's what I went with. Oh, there's part number right there. Hard to see it. It is 50124. It's like 81. Yeah, China. 277-21005. But yeah, I'm not too happy about that. I don't like that. Yeah, I'm gonna probably have to order another one. I don't like it. I'll have to. That one's got a K right there. But these do get a groove in them over time. That's why you need to replace them. Don't sleeve them unless it's something super rare. I would never sleeve it like that, you know, in this case. And look, they nicked my balancer. A nick here. Huh. That wasn't there before. Yeah, it doesn't been installed. Yep, you can see the witness marks. That one compared to that one, that's never been installed. But that definitely must have had it on there. Yeah, I don't like it. That bothers me. And I'll probably end up getting a different balancer because they didn't do anything to it. You know, we'll just put it on. So I might end up putting that one on then. I'll just save this one for something else. So yeah, I don't like that. So that's not good. And it's not even that old. So, but yeah, I just figured I'd make a little video here. And you know, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but I just wanted to make a little video and just kind of help y'all out a little bit. And don't believe everything on the internet. And you know, just be careful what you watch on YouTube here. And it's super hard to find a nice build series where they actually install the camshaft first. Then they've taken, in this case, they would put the one-piece rear main seal on the crankshaft and then install the crankshaft. So it'd be the cam always goes first. Then on a one-piece seal block, I would install that. In this case, with the 350 here, I would install that on your crankshaft and then set your crankshaft in, and then put your rear expansion plug or your cam plug in the back of the block, and you know, that way you already got that stuff done. And then once that's done, then I'm going and set it up on a stand there, and then just put the rest of the way together. But that's just me. But so we're gonna clean this thing up, and we'll have some more videos to come here. And it's always nice just to verify everything, you know. And nice thing about it too is this came with the keyways. That was the only nice thing about the Napa one. The other one didn't come with the keyways. But it's always nice just to make sure your oil filter adapter, all that good stuff fits, and your oil pan. But we're not going to use that filter. I always use Wicks. That's just the old one I had. But see, one thing, this is why you verify things, is we have a little issue with this oil pan. And I think time chain cover will be fine. But a little bit, some of these bolt holes ain't quite lining up. They line up pretty decent on this side. And of course our rear main seal is not on the back. But we come over this side, I don't get all slack for all this thing and all this thing being so dirty, but it'll be alright. We try and center that up there. And then, yeah, see, come over here. It's probably about as good as we can get. That one's not bad, but some of them are kind of questionable, but might have to go through and clean them out. But that's why I don't like surprises. But now we kind of get an idea here, seeing what's what. So, but it's been a long time since I've had that oil pan that's out long. This thing's been at the machine shop. I've had that oil pan that long, and you know, just a few years ago, painted orange and everything. And that is a oil pan for the passenger side dipsticks. And the one-piece rear main seal, obviously. And they have the version before that. They have they're a little bit different oil pan. They have one for the passenger side dipstick, but it's for a two-piece rear main seal. And then the one before that is made for a driver's side dipstick and a two-piece rear main seal. But up here, I believe it's all the same. So that should be all the same. And that's why you always verify stuff. And I'll probably change this out. And yeah, that's still plastic. Change them out, throw it away, get a copper crush washer right there. That'll take care of that issue. But that's why we verify stuff. So help me reach 2,000 subscribers, and or more. More is always better. And we're going to end the video here. And I'm sorry to drag it out so long, but I hope y'all enjoyed it. And you know, we're going to get this thing straightened out, and definitely going to give it a good cleaning, and just kind of see what's what with it. So until next time, bye.